Don't look now, but Giovanni Frezza is in this movie. We might be in trouble. Welcome to Sick Flicks, where I take a deep dive into the cinematic sewer to help you embrace your inner gore geek. I'm Mike Bracken, aka the Horror Geek, and today we're tackling Lamberto Bava's bloody giallo, A Blade in the Dark. Released in 1983, A Blade in the Dark was Bava's second feature film, coming after Macabre but before Demons. Bava had worked as an assistant director for Dario Argento on Tenebre prior to this film, and you can absolutely see the influence. The film was originally titled House of Dark Stairs in Italy, but Bava says he likes the American title a lot more.
Per esempio, trovo molto più bello il titolo che è stato dato in inglese che quello che ebbe in italiano, perché nonostante la casa con la scala nel buio che...
I agree. But enough about that. Can A Blade in the Dark slash its way to 5 barf bags? Let's get to the gore and find out. Oh, and before we get started, today's video is brought to you by patrons Cassie Lynn Blevins, Christine Handlin, and my old pal Lee Chase. If you want to help sponsor some videos, sign up for my Patreon. You'll find links in the description and pinned comment below. And now, let's get to the splatter. We fade in on Lonnie and his pal dragging an unwilling Tommy Doyle to the Myers house. Get your ass away from there, Lonnie. Man, my Donald Pleasance sucks. Oh no, it's Giovanni Frezza, aka Bob from House by the Cemetery. On second thought, don't get your ass away from there. Please, just hand him over to Michael. Tell him it's his long-lost brother and to do his thing. Apparently, this is a hazing ritual. And why is this kid talking but his lips aren't moving?
Go on down the stairs and get it!
And now it's time for the joys of Italian horror film dubbing.
Female, you are a female, you are a female.
Because it's totally believable that a couple of young boys would chant, "You're a female," at their friend. That's totally an American thing to do. Giovanni doesn't take being called a female lightly, though, so he heads down the steps. Then this happens. Maybe he is a female. That's a pretty feminine scream. Then we jump scare right to the credits. Let's see what we've got. Here's Andrea Occhipinti. We last saw him in New York Ripper. And here's Michele Soavi making his 697th appearance on the show. He's running neck and neck with Giovanni Lombardo Radice for most Sick Flicks cameos. Stanko Molnar? I bet he can fight. You grow up with a name like Stanko, you're gonna learn to throw hands at an early age. Screenplay by Dardano Sacchetti and wife Elisa Berganti. Sacchetti really was like a screenplay assembly line in the 80s. He probably wrote this one while on the can one day. And directed by Lamberto Bava, who we've not seen since Demons 2. Well, guess we're done with the credits. No need to drag them out. Groundskeeper Willie is trimming the hedges. It's good to see he takes his work seriously. Inside, we meet Bruno and Michele Soavi.
What are you working on now?
Oh, I'm doing a little remix for some guys called the Wu-Tang Clan. Apparently, they're nothing to fuck with. And their meeting ends with Bruno offering to make Soavi a mixtape.
Could I come sometime and hear you play?
It's a little difficult. I have no set schedule. But if you like, I could record a cassette.
Somebody's got a crush. Later that night, Bruno has a lady friend over to screen some home movies. Wait, is this just the footage from before the credits? What's going on here?
Well, what do you think, Bruno?
It stinks.
Then she starts talking about her inspirations.
Ever since I was a little child, I was afraid of the dark.
Bruno's like, boring.
Murderers lurk in the black dark.
Are you high, lady? Because you sound high. So the gist of all this is Bruno's gonna write the score for her horror movie. And he's gonna stay in this big fancy villa to do it. I mean, what could go wrong? Well, at least the place looks like it's set up for scoring a film. He's got everything he needs. A piano, a bat phone in case Commissioner Gordon needs him, and an issue of Penthouse. Oh, and an X-Acto knife. I tried really hard to come up with an X-Acto knife joke here, but none of them made the cut. He comes home to a metronome and a banging door. No, you're totally off beat.
It stinks.
And outside, Jason's watching him from the bushes. While he's busy composing, someone's downstairs whispering in the shadows. For an isolated villa, there sure are a lot of people in this place. He heads downstairs to investigate and walks right into this jump scare.
Not a spider, it's a cockroach.
That's not a cockroach, that's definitely a spider. At any rate, he doesn't seem bothered to find a weird chick in his house.
Hey, can you lend a girl a cigarette?
Oh, sure. I think so. Here.
In fact, she seems more bothered by it than he does.
Your expression says it all. Who is this mad lady who came jumping out at me out there in the hall?
And she's pretty forward.
Musician? I adore musicians. They're really great in bed. How are you in the feathers?
This scintillating repartee is interrupted by a phone call. Michele Soavi wants to know if Bruno wants to buy an extended warranty for his car. Also, I think he borrowed this sweater from the Cosby Show wardrobe. Afterwards, he heads off to find Katia. Hey, let me in, I really gotta go. Except she's not in there, but he does find her diary. Dear diary, the new tenant moved into the villa the other day. He's dreamy. I think I'm gonna hide in his closet and watch him while he sleeps. Oh, and there's this. Guessing it's gonna be important.
I've discovered Linda's secret. And it's really terrifying.
He seems pretty nonplussed that this woman just vanished in his house. Screw it, back to work. It is convenient that he's providing the music for our stalk and kill scene, though. Katia runs into the killer and gets a slash course in surviving an X-Acto knife attack. I don't think hiding behind a chain link fence is really the right move here. Told ya. This is really a pretty offensive hiding place. Then he starts cutting. Any way you slice it, this is gonna hurt. Back upstairs, Bruno's listening to some music and he hears these weird voices on the track. Back outside, the killer's dragging Katia around. This kind of reminds me of the killers dragging Drew Barrymore in Scream. If it feels like this movie is very padded, it's because it is. A Blade in the Dark was originally slated to be a 4-part television series that would end each installment with a murder.
Deve essere 4 puntate di 30 minuti, mi sembra, per un'eventuale vendita televisiva.
When the Italian TV people saw it, they concluded it was too gory for television and Bava had to recut it as a feature film. Anyway, Bruno heads outside and finds some blood, and then that he's clearly got a problem with squatters. No, not the kind that lift heavy weights. Then he returns to find someone has trashed his work. Oh man, RZA and Method Man are gonna be so pissed. Oh hey, remember Groundskeeper Willie? Yeah, he's still in this movie. He's dragging this heavy bag. Could he be our killer? Bruno's ready to settle in for the night, but wouldn't you know it, there's someone else in the house. Christ, did I rent a bed and breakfast or what? The next morning, he tells Julia all about the weird things going on. She's not really interested.
I'm beginning to get tired of your story.
God, the dubbing in this movie is bad even by Italian horror standards.
Yes, Bruno, obviously. And I admit as spots of blood they looked mighty genuine.
And she's vindictive.
The minute I turned my back, you found yourself a young admirer. I promise you I shall make you sorry you did that.
Can't imagine why he'd want to find someone else. I mean, Julia's such a charmer.
You'll have to break a record because in about 52 seconds I get on the road.
52 seconds? That's a good 22 more than I need. Buckle up for the best 30 seconds of your life, baby. A minute later, they're back to talking about Katia.
The killer must have set an appointment with her here.
Well, that's pretty considerate, I guess. Hello, Katia? I'd like to schedule a time to murder you. What's your schedule looking like? After Julia leaves, Bruno does some more exploring. Oh, hair's what you're looking for. Except he's too blind to see it. Then he gets this weird phone call.
I'm gonna kill you.
Look, Julia, I know you're jealous, but this is a bit much. Oh, wait, it's just the director of the movie. Yeah, she's still in this movie, too. Christ, this movie has a lot of characters for being about a guy who's supposed to be isolated and working. And now, here comes another random woman. I don't know, they might need to up the security at this place or something. People are just wandering through here all day. Do you mind? I'm trying to work. At any rate, she's here looking for Katia,
Actually, I was looking for Katya.
who obviously never made it home, but she's also easily distracted.
Take a dip as often as you like, whenever you want.
Can I really? I'm gonna go in right now.
Groundskeeper Willie here isn't pleased. Ah, models in Willie's hidey hole? I'll mop up your blood from the inside. She dives in, but doesn't notice she's not alone. I was a pretty good swimmer back in my day. You could say I was a cut above the competition. Back inside, Bruno's hard at work when, you guessed it, another random person just barges in.
Sorry, I was looking for Sandra.
I hope all these people are paying him rent. And in more randomness, someone's up here in the kitchen fingering the knives. Oh, bread knife, you're my favorite. We've been through thick and thin together. And good to see the model's just making herself at home. Sure, just use my toothbrush. I don't mind. But look out, she's being stalked. Is our killer a woman? Anyway, she's doing a terrible job of rinsing the shampoo out of her hair, so our killer is like, here, let me take a stab at it. Then she gets her head smashed into the counter. You could say our killer is a bastard. This makes a real mess. Probably gonna need more than Kleenex to get the blood out of that grout. And since things were actually getting interesting, let's jump to Bruno drinking water. He's gonna take a nice bath, but unfortunately the drain is clogged. There are teeth gumming up the drain. Bruno is pretty enamored by this discovery. Then he finds this bloody hole in the counter. I'm really gonna have to get on the maid about this. And if you guessed he'd fit the knife in the hole, give yourself a screenwriter's credit. Man, that sounds way dirtier than it actually is. This, of course, leads to more scenes of Bruno walking around, because Blade in the Dark loves scenes of Bruno walking around. Then he heads back upstairs to record a new episode of his podcast. Hey guys, be sure to subscribe on iTunes and leave a rating. Oh, and check out today's sponsor, Raid Shadow Legends. Turns out he's actually documenting the case.
I'm nearly positive that I've uncovered a chain of murders.
I really do feel like he was ahead of all of us on the true crime creepypasta podcast thing. If you guessed he was going to be interrupted by another unexpected visitor, give yourself another screenwriter's credit. Oh my god, it's sexy Ronnie James Dio. Oh wait, it's just the film director. Bruno's like, come on in, you can be on my podcast. After some jibber jabber, we get this fantastic line of dialogue.
I used to know a Linda, but it couldn't be the same one.
Well, thanks for wasting our time with it, I guess. They head off for, you guessed it, more walking. This movie has more walking than The Lord of the Rings at this point. And surprise, now the locked room is unlocked. Was Jill Valentine here? And all they find down here are boxes of porn.
She read a lot.
Well, looked at the pictures is probably more accurate. Then they find this chest of tennis balls. They served her well. After that, it's time for some of the wackiest exposition ever.
I can't say that she did the killings, but the film is based on Linda as a child. All the rest is my fantasy.
But wait, there's more.
Are you by any chance suggesting there could be an analogy between my film and these killings?
Well, yeah, since you basically just admitted it was based on a true story. I mean, this isn't that complicated. This riveting dialogue is interrupted when the killer arrives upstairs.
Whoever it is just above us.
They do some skulking around just to pad the already outrageously long, just under 2 hours runtime. This is not all wasted, at least. We learn the killer can't be bothered to wear sensible shoes to her killings. Bruno eventually wanders right into a jump scare. Oh, it's Julia. Is she our killer?
Bruno! Oh my god, it's you!
Then they have words.
Mind explaining why you were skulking?
Skulking? What the hell are you saying?
Yeah, skulking. It means to keep out of sight with a sinister or cowardly motive. You really should work on your vocabulary. Later on, she's like, now you're cheating on me with Ronnie James Dio? Back at Dio, aka Sandra's place, she calls the mysterious Linda. It's a weird call.
Hello? Linda, don't cry.
I feel like the twist of this movie is painfully obvious because Bava basically screamed it out at multiple points already. Do you guys know who the killer is yet? Back at the villa, Bruno can't find Julia. This, of course, leads to more random walking around. Jesus Christ, Lamberto Bava. He doesn't find her, but he does find groundskeeper Willie. Got a feeling something bad's about to happen. My shinning is acting up. You mean shining? Shh, you want to get sued? He does find Julia, and they do what they do best. Bicker.
Please don't begin. Ever since you started this job with Sandra, you're somebody else.
Then Bruno helps groundskeeper Willie unload his new real doll. Pull, Willie, pull. I'm doing all the pulling, you blouse-wearing poodle walker. Oh, and I've been meaning to ask you, what do you think of my music? Sounds like the gopher I caught in me lawnmower. Then he walks over to bicker with Julia.
You actually gonna begin again with this story?
And is it possible you're such a vacant nerd?
Sick burn, bro. He leaves, then has to wait in line to use a payphone. Do you kids even remember payphones? Christ, I'm old. Hello, Lamberto Bava? Could we maybe pick up the pace on this movie? Thanks. Turns out he's checking up on Julia, who's been lying to him.
She took off on opening night without a word, and that's the last we heard of her.
Could she really be the killer, or is this a red herring? Meanwhile, over at the studio, the killer is doing her best MPAA impression and demanding that some cuts be made to this film. The really interesting thing about Blade in the Dark is you can see that Bava learned a lot working with his father and Dario Argento. The camera movements in this film are very Argento-esque. Blade in the Dark feels like it wants to be Tenebre, but it doesn't have the script, the cast, the budget, or the ideas to rise to that level. Back at the villa, groundskeeper Willie is draining some grease. This grease is going to be my retirement fund. Unfortunately, it's clogged, but this corpse is like, let me lend you a hand. And here are 2 dead girls. But before Willie can call the cops, he gets beamed in the head with his wrench. Guess they're not going to torque things out. Back at the studio, they're watching the final reel. This guy is clearly Giovanni Frezza's dad.
That little boy's a good actor.
Sandra shows up at the villa and walks right into a jump scare. Then she gets lassoed by her own film stock. Forget Antrim, this might be the deadliest film ever made. Afterwards, Julia finds the footage. And Sandra. You could say she was really buried in her work. Julia flees, but she's trapped inside by the killer. After a stealth mission, Julia takes some balls to the chin.
Hell yeah.
No, not like that, you pervs. A bunch of tennis balls drop on her. And like a dummy, she hides in the closet.
Don't be afraid. I don't want to hurt you. I want your blood.
It sounds like she's being stalked by Mickey Mouse. Is this a New York Ripper spinoff? And say what you will, but this is pretty bright. I was promised a Blade in the Dark, and this is not it. Bruno shows up, but the killer stabs Julia right in the back. Then he charges Bruno, who goes all Brick Grimes and beans him. You could say he hit him like a 1 of bricks. I guess that brick's not getting laid tonight. Julia's dead, so Bruno goes back to unmask our killer, except, surprise, it's Michele Soavi doing his best Mrs. Doubtfire impression. Clearly he's a big Aerosmith fan. Then he gets stabbed and ties the whole movie together. Afterwards, Bruno's like, damn, guess I'm not getting paid for this soundtrack. Then we get some armchair psychology.
His ego as a child was too fragile, which caused his masculinity to regress.
And roll into the credits. Given A Blade in the Dark's production history, it makes sense that it feels so off. Bava made a television film, which was turned into a theatrical film. I'm certain he'd have made it differently if he'd known he was making a feature film from the start. The pacing is all wrong for a feature-length movie. A Blade in the Dark would have been much more effective with a 90-minute runtime instead of nearly 2 hours. But enough about all of that. Can A Blade in the Dark carve itself a 5 barf bag rating? Let's go to the gore card. In terms of gross anatomy, A Blade in the Dark is pretty middle of the road. We're treated to multiple stabbings, the knife through the hand, a slit throat, a strangulation, and that wrench beating. Bava's film might have been too much for TV, but it's only just gory enough to eke out a 3 barf bag rating, mostly on the strength of the model's death scene. It's not a super sick flick, but there are some okay kills here. Want to see the film that clearly inspired this one? Then check out my review of Tenebre. You'll find a link on the screen after my outtakes. I'll meet you over there. Until next time, I'm Mike Bracken, aka The Horror Geek, bringing you all the splatter that matters. Giovanni doesn't take being called a female lightly, though. Oh my god, I can't read. Really, just some impeccable writing on this script. Top-notch work. Christ, did I rent a bread and breakfast? You know, those are great places to stay. Michele Soavi wants to know if Bruno is interested in bed and breakfast. Michele Soavi wants to know if Bruno is interested in an extended... Who writes this stuff, man? Katia runs into the killer and gets a slash course in surviving an exact... My favorite part of the show is when I mess up my own puns and jokes. Bruno's ready to settle in for a night? Yeah, it's ready to settle in for a night, not the night, a night. Oh my god, I can't even make sense of my own scripts anymore. You could say I really do feel like he was ahead of all of us on the true crime creepy... True crime Every week, the challenge is to write like 20 tongue twisters I could not possibly say. They do some skulking around to pad the already outrageously long just under 2 hours runtime, but at least it's all... Periods are your friend. They allow you to stop and breathe between sentences.